Well, it looks like yet another year is going to go by in the college football playoff era, going all the way back to the 4 team, uh, where Ohio State just doesn't have what it takes to go undefeated. They lost this past weekend in the Big Ten championship game to Indiana, and look, I get it. The conference championship games don't mean nearly what they used to. And even though Ohio State lost, they're still on their way to the playoffs with a 2 seed in the first round bye. And that's great. We'll get to some of that later. But you lost to Indiana. And I don't know, man. Ohio State's had some pretty good teams. They've even managed to win a couple of natties in the playoff era. And for all I know, eventually they may win a couple more. But they're not going to go undefeated, are they? No. They've got 2 natties in the playoff era. Was it 2014? But they had a loss. Then, of course, last year they had not 1 but 2 losses. And what's funny is they try to convince you that they're the greatest of all time while they've got multiple losses. They're still trying to tell people that last year's Ohio State team was the greatest team of all time. And up until about 10:30 Saturday night, they were trying to tell everybody that this year's team was the greatest team of all time, the most talented, the most weapons. You can't stop them. They're going to beat everybody they played. Are going 16-0. Well, turned out that's just not the case. Indiana slapped you around Saturday night and won the Big Ten title. It's kind of funny, too. Ohio State, I guess, is like the bully on the block right now in the Big Ten, right? They won the national title last year. They were undefeated this year. They finally got over the hump and beat Michigan. They were on their way. They were the bully. And you got slapped around by the new kid in class. Every time there's like a show or a movie or anything that has a bully in it, there's going to be that scene somewhere, either at the end or somewhere in the movie where the bully finally gets what's coming to him and the new kind of dorky kid is the one to deliver the blow. That was the case. Indiana came in there and beat you. It was a good game. I'm not going to talk a lot of trash about Ohio State losing. It was a really good game. I did pick Ohio State to win, but I took Indiana plus the point, so I assumed it would be a really close game. Like Ohio State fans, I figured Ohio State would come out on top, but that just wasn't the case. You look at some of the numbers from the game, the thing that really jumps out is Ohio State's rushing numbers, or lack thereof, their inability to really consistently run the ball. Now, I thought Bo Jackson had a pretty good day overall for Ohio State. He had about, 80 yards or something like that, a little less than 20. I think it was like 17 carries for 83 yards. But as a team, they only rushed for 58. Now, we all know in college football, your sack numbers get deducted from your rushing total. Aside from that, though, their running backs only ran the ball for 87 yards in this game against Indiana, and 83 of that was from Bo Jackson. I think Isaiah West had a couple of carries for 4 or 5 yards. The Indiana defense really smothered the Ohio State offense. Jeremiah Smith had a good game, so some of their stars played well. I mean, Jeremiah Smith had over 100 yards receiving, almost 10 catches, I think. Bo Jackson, like I mentioned, with the 83 yards rushing. But Indiana sacked Julian Sayin 5 times in this game, and they harassed him really for the entirety of the game. Julian Sayin ended up 21 of 29 for 258 yards with a touchdown and an interception. On the other side of things, from Fernando Mendoza, who I think is probably going to end up winning the Heisman, although I still think it should be Jeremiah Love. I think he's the best player in football this year. Mendoza's been really great, and he's had some sort of big plays and big moments, and that's important when it comes to winning the Heisman. So I won't have any problem at all if Mendoza wins it. He's a great player. He was 15 of 23, 222 yards with a touchdown and an interception, and Indiana ran the ball for 118 yards. So, I mean, you can go through the numbers and dissect these things. They're pretty similar. I mean, obviously, you're looking at a final score here of 13-10, so it wasn't like it was some sort of offensive outburst by either team. The Ohio State defense, which I think has been the best in football all year long, they played really well, too. I mean, each team only gave up 1 touchdown, and field goals and missed field goals really is what ended up being the difference in this game. That, and I would say Indiana's ability to pressure Julian Sayin. I think Indiana did a better job protecting Mendoza than Ohio State did of protecting Sayin, although Ohio State had 3 sacks of their own. And a lot of pressures on Mendoza as well. This was your classic sort of defensive, last team to get the ball, maybe has a chance to win or kick a field goal type of situation. Didn't necessarily play out that way. There was no points scored in the fourth quarter, but you know what I mean. I mean, in a 1-score game, if you've got the ball there at the end, you're like, okay, we got a chance here. Ohio State just couldn't put enough consistency together offensively to win this game. That combined, of course, with the missed field goal. But both teams are moving on here. So aside from laughing at Ohio State from losing a game, because let's be real, it's both a compliment and an insult, I guess. But there's a handful of teams in college football that it's just always funny when they lose. And it's because they don't lose a lot. At Ohio State, for a long time, it was Bama. Georgia now, every time they lose, it's hilarious. There's the sort of top 3, 4, 5 programs in college football at any given time, whoever you think that might be. It's just funny anytime they lose. So I couldn't let the opportunity go by not to come on and laugh at Ohio State a little bit for losing to the new kid in class, Indiana. But look, shout out to Indiana. I do not like Curt Cignetti. I don't know very many people that do. He's arrogant and brash and rude and all of those things, but he backs it up. And here's the thing, and I say this about a lot of different people. If you're going to be that way, if that's going to be the personality that you're going to put out there, then you better win. Because if you don't, then everybody's going to jump on you. Well, so far, Curt Cignetti is backing it up. They only had the one loss last year in the regular season was to Ohio State. They then went on, made the playoffs, lost to Notre Dame, ran through their schedule this year. And while it might not be the toughest schedule on the planet, they had some good wins. They beat Oregon on the road, which I think was extremely impressive. That's still Oregon's only loss. They've got a 5 seed in the playoffs, which we're going to take a look at here in a second. But Indiana has been a remarkable story over the last 2 years. They are the losingest team in the history of college football, if you're just going off number of losses. Now, they've been around a long time, and that obviously plays into it. You know, the longer you've been around, the more opportunities you've had to lose. But they're the losingest team in the history of college football. And the turnaround there in the last 2 years under Curt Cignetti can't be denied. And again, I'm admitting I don't like Curt Cignetti, but I have the ability to differentiate, my feelings for somebody versus the reality of what I'm seeing on the field. And the reality is that Curt Cignetti is a hell of a coach. He's a great developer. He's got a great staff. He gets the most out of the players. It's a lot like what Kyle Whittingham was able to do for all those years at Utah on steroids. Whittingham's Utah teams were never the most talented. They never had sort of the roster full of first-round players or whatever. But you had to beat them when you played them. They weren't going to beat themselves. They were tough. They were physical. They played good defense, good lines of scrimmage. And you see a lot of those same things with Indiana turned up to 11. And for them to go into this Big Ten championship game and beat Ohio State, I don't know what else Indiana would need to do to sort of prove to people out there that they're a legitimate title contending team. Are they going to win the national title? Who knows? It's going to be hard for anybody to win the 12-team playoff, including Ohio State last year, who got red hot and ran through there, winning 4 games in a row to win the national title. Somebody's going to have an opportunity to do that again this year, but I can tell you right now, as good as Indiana was last year, and I do think Indiana was good last year. I think they deserved to be in the playoffs. I wasn't one of these people who said, well, yeah, they're 11-1, but it's Indiana. They shouldn't get in. They didn't beat anybody. I think they deserved to be in last year. I also thought they would lose in the first round against anybody, no matter who they played. And they did with the loss to Notre Dame. This year has been different, and if you've watched some Indiana games, I think you understand that. Number one, they've got a Heisman-level quarterback. They went out in the portal, they got him, they brought him in. So this isn't something where this guy's been developing under Cignetti for 3 years. He went and found this guy, similar to what Lane Kiffin did with Trinidad Chambliss, in the portal, brought him in one offseason has turned him into what you've seen on the field this year. Everybody talks about the Ohio State defense, and for good reason. It's one of the best defenses we've seen in a long time, probably the best defense since that 2021-2022 Georgia defense that Kirby fielded for a couple of years down in Athens. That Indiana defense is at or near that same level. It is really, really good. We can laugh at Ohio State for losing, but the reality is they are absolutely loaded on offense at every position group with NFL players. We all know about the wide receivers. That's a continuing theme at Ohio State. You got Jeremiah Smith. You got Carnell Tate. You got Ennis. You got the transfer tight end they brought in from Purdue, Clary, K-L-A-R-E, whatever his name is. NFL offensive lineman, Julian Sayin, although he's a first-year starter, has played like a future NFL prospect. Bo Jackson has turned out to be a really, really good running back. They're just loaded everywhere. And Indiana made them look pedestrian. Now, you could say the same thing about Ohio State's defense and what they did to Indiana, and that was sort of the point of the beginning of the video. Low scoring defensive struggle, 13-10, comes down to, a missed field goal, really, for Ohio State and some decision making there. A really, really good game. But the fact that Indiana won this thing, there shouldn't be anybody else out there now that's looking at Indiana as sort of an also-ran. Indiana has just as good of a chance to win the national title this season as anybody else in the playoff. Any case you want to make for any other team, you can make that same case for Indiana. My only concern, if I have one for Indiana, would be the overall talent. They can beat anybody on any given day, and I think we've seen that. They won at Oregon. They won in a neutral site against Ohio State. They have what it takes to beat anybody on any given day. Can they do that 4 games in a row against top 10 teams, which is 3 games in a row? They've got a first round bye. They're going to have to beat 3 top 10 teams in a row. And it's no shade at Indiana when I say, can they do that? That's going to be hard for anybody to do. It's going to be hard for Ohio State to beat 3 top 10 teams in a row. It's going to be hard for Georgia, Texas A&M, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, Bama, all these teams in the play. It's going to be hard for anybody to do it. But I think Indiana's got just as good a shot, if not better, than anybody else. So let's take a look at the playoff bracket here and see how it might break down for both Ohio State and Indiana, who of course both have first round byes. Indiana gets the 1 seed with the win over Ohio State. Ohio State gets the 2. So Indiana is going to play the winner of Alabama, Oklahoma. Ohio State is going to play the winner of Miami and Texas A&M. Which of those 2 paths do you think is easier, or which would you rather have? Who do you think is going to win those 2 games? Alabama, Oklahoma, Miami, Texas A&M. I'm going to make detailed breakdown videos, of course, of all the first round games, including those 2. I think Indiana's got a good chance of beating either Alabama or Oklahoma, either one. Oklahoma has struggled offensively this year. It's hard to imagine them doing anything at all against that Indiana defense. For Indiana, they put up 13 against Ohio State. What will they be able to do against Oklahoma? That would be an interesting matchup. It might be a first 1 to 20 wins in that Indiana-Oklahoma game. When you look at Texas A&M, Miami, and who would Ohio State rather play between those 2? I'm not sure they have a preference. I would probably take Ohio State to win against either of those teams. I'm going to do a breakdown on the Miami-Texas A&M game, so I'm not going to make a pick on it. Right now, both teams have quarterbacks who can play at an extremely high level. In the case of Miami and Carson Beck, the turnover bug has bitten him from time to time, but over the last month of the season, he's played much better than he did in the month of October. Marcel Reed was a Heisman candidate up until the minute he threw those 2 interceptions against Texas in the fourth quarter and sort of cost them that game. But both of those teams can score. Would they be able to score on Ohio State? That's the question. I do think Ohio State would be able to score on either of those 2 teams. I don't imagine Miami or Texas A&M, either one, holding Ohio State to 10 points like Indiana did. So if you're Miami or Texas A&M, you better come up with some type of a plan in that game to score 30, because that's probably what it's going to take to win that game. And then if Indiana and Ohio State were to win their first round games, they would move on to play, in the case of Ohio State, either Georgia, Tulane, or Ole Miss. I think a lot of people would love to see a Georgia-Ohio State playoff game. That first-round playoff game from a couple of years ago is one of the best playoff games we've had in a long, long time in college football. Ohio State missing a field goal literally as the clock struck midnight on New Year's Eve was one of the wildest things we've seen in a long, long time. A lot of people would love to see a rematch there. Ohio State versus Ole Miss would be interesting. 2 high-powered offenses there. Ole Miss defensively leaves a lot to be desired, though. Ohio State would probably have a track meet on that Ole Miss team. On the other side of the bracket with Indiana, if they were to win their first round game, they would then be looking at a game against either Texas Tech, James Madison, or Oregon. Obviously, everybody thinks Oregon's going to beat James Madison, right? So you're looking at a Texas Tech versus Oregon second round game. I'm going to be honest, I would probably take Texas Tech there if I had to pick right now. Now, I don't have to pick right now. That game, if it's played, won't be till New Year's Eve or New Year's Day. So we got 3.5 weeks or so till we have to worry about that. But I'm really impressed with Texas Tech. A lot like Indiana, it's hard for people to get past the logo on people's helmets sometimes when they look at a team and you're like, well, Texas Tech, yeah, it's a good story. They had a good year in the Big 12, but surely they won't do anything in the playoffs. Kind of the same way people viewed Indiana last year, and to some extent, some people still viewing Indiana that way this year. I think Texas Tech is legit. They've got maybe the best front seven in football. Jacob Rodriguez, that linebacker, won the Buckus Award. I think Texas Tech versus Oregon would be a really, really good game. And if you're going to sort of hold my feet to the fire and make me predict that game right now, which I'm not doing, I would go with Texas Tech. Now, we'll see how Oregon looks against James Madison. Oregon's had some injury issues at wide receiver that may be settled. Maybe they get some of those guys back. If not for the James Madison game, maybe Texas Tech, whatever. Everybody's got people injured. That's the reality. So everybody's trying to get people back here in the lead up to the playoffs. The Texas Tech-Oregon game would be really, really good. Anyway, shout out to Ohio State, man. Second best team in the Big Ten. That's not too bad. That's not too bad. And why can't Ohio State go undefeated in the age of the playoff? It's, Alabama, same disease, by the way. Alabama and Ohio State have the same disease. As good as they have been, those two programs, and I would argue that over the course of the entire playoff era, so 2014 to now, I would argue that Ohio State and Alabama are probably the two best programs overall during that sort of 11 or 12-year period that we've had of the playoffs going back to 2014. You can throw Georgia and Clemson in there sort of after that. But I think Alabama and Ohio State overall, two best programs of the playoff era. Why can't they go undefeated in the playoffs? I don't get it. I don't get it. They always manage to lose a game, and Ohio State did it again. This is, I'm not going to put their helmet over there onto your season is over wall. That's reserved for just Notre Dame right now because, of course, their season actually is over. Turns out they're scared to play BYU. Anyway, great win for Indiana. I thought Ohio State played well defensively, but not enough offense, and a missed field goal really cost them there in their inability to protect Julian Sayin. Caught up to them, and Indiana gets the win. Both teams will move on to the college football playoff. What do you think about their chances to win it all? Let me know in the comments down below. Appreciate you watching. Have a good morning.